Welcome back to Dragon Army Books. My name is Dustin, and this is a review of The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. It is the first book in the Wheel of Time series, and I don't even know where to begin. Okay, let's just begin with the plot. For those of you that do not know, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. The wheel weaves as the wheel wills. Try to say that one time slow. And as the wheel turns, the same cycle of events transpire again and again and again. Now, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of years in between each of these cyclical events, but the wheel is coming up again on the prophecy being foretold, where the dark forces are rising and the dragon will be reborn to vanquish all of the dark and its fiends. That's kind of the overriding plot, not only I think of this first book, but of the series, although of course I haven't read the series yet. But in this story, we focus in on three young boys from a little known village in the, almost said the Two Towers, which, but in the Two Rivers, actually. And it's Emansfield, and we've got three boys who might be at the center of that prophecy because they were born around the same time in the same location. And so both forces of light and forces of dark are kind of focusing in on these three characters and either preserving or destroying them. And then we focus a little bit more on one character in particular who is our primary point of view and protagonist throughout the story, Rand al'Thor, who I believe is going to be the Dragon Reborn, of course. But he and his friends set out on a journey when his town and village are attacked by Trollocs. This is a fantasy book in every sense of the word. And so there are words, themes, concepts here that are very fantastical. And I'm going to do my best to pronounce all of them correctly. And I'm going to fail miserably at times. So please give me a little bit of grace. But Rand and his friends set out under the protection of a few others so that they can go ultimately to the Eye of the World and to defeat this impending darkness. Now, before we get into my feelings, let me just say I was hesitant to come to this book. In fact, it's 2021 when I'm finally reading the first book in the Wheel of Time, and I have considered myself a fantasy reader, writer, reviewer for a long time now, but many of you would beg to differ because I haven't yet read the Wheel of Time series, and so I knew that I had to get to it eventually, but the task was daunting. This series is 4.4 million words. I think that there are 14 mainline books in the series. I think 20 entries overall, might be a little skewed there on my numbers, but it is no small task. And so there have been many times where I've seen The Eye of the World in the library or seen other people talking about it that I knew that I needed to get to it, but it was too intimidating to me. I'm not typically an epic fantasy reader because of the daunting task, not only of trying to get through a series, but even just one book. Those things are massive, and then the worlds within are equally as massive, and so you're meeting a whole new culture, a whole new group of people, a whole new magic system at times. It is intimidating for readers. Some of you are adept at it, really good at it, enjoy it, all the power to you. That is not me. And so the only epic fantasy series that I've actually read to date in my consideration of what epic fantasy is are the Stormlight Archives. And I've loved it, but even that was intimidating to get into, but it's captured my heart. That's Brandon Sanderson. And he is in part why I and many other fans of The Wheel of Times or other people have read this series, because Brandon Sanderson actually was brought on to conclude this series after Robert Jordan passed away. And so that was part of my interest in coming to the series eventually. And then finally, a friend of mine, a listener to the retro gaming podcast that I do, New Game Plus, Amarlian, he actually gifted me this book. This was the first book mail that I received since starting Dragon Army. Now, I've been handed books from friends and encouraged to read and purchase, and they were purchased for me, but this was the first listener, viewer mail in where I got a physical copy and was able to read the book. So thank you so much for that. And so I finally had no other reason to not. And then with the television series in Netflix, is it Netflix, Amazon, Hulu? Disney Plus, Paramount. I don't know what, but there's going to be a Wheel of Time adaptation that's coming very soon. And so I needed to read the first book. So although the task was daunting, I read it. But you need to, everything that I'm going to share of my feelings and thoughts in this video needs to come with the idea that epic fantasy is not my go-to genre for the reasons I've already listed. All of that said, Robert Jordan read The Lord of the Rings, and then he said, "Hold my beer." That is exactly what this is. I am sure, I really haven't seen or read in many reviews of this series or this book. And so I really didn't know what I was getting into or what others have said, but now I completely understand that some, I'm sure, have said that this story, or at least the first novel, man, is fan fiction of The Lord of the Rings. And it is unashamedly. And I think Robert Jordan has actually said that previously in interviews that, hey, I wanted to reinvent The Lord of the Rings and my own kind of experience and something. Anyways, so great. I think that can be done, and it most certainly was done here. But while there are many things, I mean, straight up like, dude, Mount Doom, I believe, is the mountain. Mount Doom is the mountain that they're going to in the Lord of the Rings series. The Mountain of Doom is what it's called here in this story. And Doom is spelled D-H-O-O-M, so you know it's different. That's just one of the examples of many. One of the other examples I'm going to give you, because I think that, in my opinion, it is the analogy of my feelings towards this story. In The Lord of the Rings, there are 9 people that are part of the Fellowship, or at least the 9 walkers, right, that are traveling along with Frodo to Mount Doom. Let me see if I can, the camera's on, and so sometimes my mind goes fuzzy, but I think I can get them all right. Gandalf, Aragorn, you've got Frodo, Merry and Pippin, you've got Gimli and Legolas, that's 7. You've got Boromir, who is the 8th, and then for the 9th, we all know, did I say Frodo? Who am I missing? Samwise Gamgee. Did I really just miss Samwise Gamgee? Like the hero of the story? Sorry, Sam, I love you. Those 9 characters are kind of our traveling party, right, as we're going on this hero's journey. Well, in this story, we set out on our hero's journey, and before long, we have a party of not 9, but 8. Because in this story, every element that is taken from The Lord of the Rings and other common fantasy stories and tropes are done well, just not as well. That is my analogy here. In this story, we have 8 walkers. They're not called walkers, thank God, I don't think. But this team of 8, and the numbers vary from time to time, as they did in the Fellowship of the Rings, right? And the Lord of the Rings. That is my analogy here, that we've got 8 characters that are traveling together. And here's, it's crazy. We've got 3, not hobbits, but humans. We've got more. We've got 4 or 5. We've got 3 boys and then the 2 girls from the village. Not a Hobbiton, or the little village there, but of a different unknown, obscure village. We've got the wise wizard, not Gandalf, but of Moraine. We've got Aragorn the warrior, but we don't have him. We've got Lan the warrior. Anyway, so there's so many different comparisons. But my point, leaving The Lord of the Rings behind, is that this story is that, but less. That, but less. That, but less. Every step of the way. The characters aren't as interesting or rich. The history and the lore isn't as profound. The world building isn't done as poetically and as beautiful as Lord of the Rings and some of the others. All of that just pales in comparison when held up against the story that he was trying to compare it to in so many ways. And so that needs to be addressed, and that is going to be felt by the modern reader, especially those that are familiar with Tolkien's works. And when it comes to tropes, do we just do all of them? Are we just saying, hey, Here are some fantasy tropes that have been done. Let's do them all. Now, listen, I don't have anything against tropes. I think tropes are fun. There are many tropes that I enjoy. I either have released or will release a video soon about what tropes I enjoy and how they can be reimagined or brought back to life in new and fresh ways. But they're not entirely new or fresh here. Some are not. But we've got every single trope. We've got the chosen one, which I particularly enjoy. We've got the mentor, which is fine, right? We've got farm boy becomes hero. We've got the hero's journey. We've got pure light against pure darkness. We can just go down the list of tropes and we've got every single one. Again, tropes are not bad, but every single one of them, it's kind of like, whoa. And then when some of them are done not as well as others, that you need to take that into consideration. And then finally, on this negative side of things, is just the world building is great, but the world building is dense. There are kind of two prologues at this point to the story, and literally there are 50 different new names of people primarily, but of locations and other things that you are going to be unfamiliar with. They're not all important, but you don't know what's important when you first come to the story. And so I'm just trying to track down everything so that I don't forget everything. For the first 10 chapters, I was flipping, thank God, to the glossary in the back of the book almost every page so that I could read the definition of either the person or the thing or the place or the magic that was just dropped on me by name in the story. It is dense. Okay, that is a lot to say. I liked it. I know that you probably don't believe me or think that after watching some of this, but I needed to get that out of the way to say that, hey, it's fun and it's a good story and it's told well, even with all of those considerations. It's slow, but once I hit the 75% mark, I really felt myself more attached at that point and finally was like, no, let's do this, because some of the things that have been building for the first 75% of the book finally started to pick up and happen. And I was kind of sold there. The characters are all unique and interesting enough. The world, although it's not built out in the way that, in the most poetic or beautiful way, or in the most like mechanically like clear-cut here you go way, it's still done well. And you can tell that Jordan put so much thought into this world and magic system that is still being explored, and it's not even done halfway here. I don't know if there's some kind of hard magic system. It feels really soft. It's like some people can do magic, and what can they do? They can do different things, but I know that he's probably got a deeper thing here that's built out in the coming stories, not only with the magic system, but with the characters and everything else. There are a few cool subversions to the tropes that I've mentioned. So with the chosen one, this chosen one is meant to, or is prophesied to slaughter everyone that's near and dear to him. So that's interesting. It's interesting that you've got these three boys and different things are happening to them. Character progression was slow in coming with them. But now it's like, man, is one of them going to be like this evil malevolent force? Whereas Rand is going to be the Dragon Reborn, in my opinion. There are some cool things that have happened here. I think, though, that it is an intimidating and daunting task for most readers. If you are not yet into this, and if you don't read epic fantasy, I just could not encourage you to read this book. But if you are a fan of epic fantasy, typically, and you are okay with stories like Dune, and Dune typically comes to mind of just like info dump characters, dense world building, even at the beginning, and it feels overwhelming where you're just thrown into the deep end, and you're okay with that because you feel like, hey, if the payoff's there and I can come up swimming, then it's something that I'm interested in, then hey, read it. You might enjoy it. And again, I think the series is probably only going to get better. For me, I might read the series in its entirety at some point, but this book has not caused me to place it at the top of my TBR. It's not something that I'm going to rush to get into. I gave it a solid 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and I think that is fair and balanced. What did you think of The Eye of the World? Where do you think that I got it wrong? Who's your favorite character? Tell me in the comments down below. I particularly like Rand and Perrin. Scratch that. Egwene. Is that how you pronounce her name? Egwene. It's probably more like that. It's not Egwene, but I really like her. I think there's going to be some really cool things done with her, hopefully. Hopefully. So that's who I like. Who do you like? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching and liking this video. If you haven't yet, click subscribe, join the Dragon Army, and we'll see you in the next one.